Houston-Tillotson University and Austin Community College. I did my DMA at UT and my master's at Manhattan School of Music, and I got my BM at Oberlin. I've been in Brazil and luckily getting to play in Europe and all parts of the United States. And I have to say, I play all genres. So I feel really at home with these ladies here because we have a plethora of genres and backgrounds, experiences, and really overall a lot to share with us today. I'd like to have Georgia talk about herself a little bit, and then we'll get started on our first little section of issues and things to talk about.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to be here. I was stoked and honored when Ryan hit me up, and also terrified. But I'm so stoked to be here with you guys today. My name is Georgia Parker, and I am an upright bassist and a guitar player. I play bluegrass and western swing around Texas, and I learned as an adult, and I learned at gigs, and it's been a wild ride, and I'm always a student of the upright bass, and I love it.
Aren't we all of the upright bass? The first section we're going to talk about really is being a student, having different types of education and different kinds of inspiration, and how whatever age you are, whatever genre, whatever gender you are, you have the accessibility. So I'd like to introduce one of our first panelists here. I just accidentally closed my notes, so and I don't have it memorized, so give me just 1 second. Here it is, boom, boom. Our first panelist as part of our daily is, oh my goodness, ladies, give me the first one. I don't have it. Is it Jen? Jen! Miss Jen Hodges. Now, Jen Hodges and her bio, she is coming from a background of Vancouver, British Columbia, and New York City. She is a very busy bassist and vocalist. She's a band leader, arranger. She uses a variety of artists from all over the world. Jen's playing is characterized by hard swinging grooves, which we can all relate to, I hope, and an expressive, energetic playing style. She, through this pandemic, has moved back, I think, to Vancouver. You're back in Canada, and she's going to talk about her experiences as a professional double bassist. And play something.
All right. Yeah, I'll start with playing something, probably. Is that the plan? Is that maybe
Sure.
Maybe I should do that regardless, because it might take away some of my nerves. I am so very happy to be here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and to Jessica and Georgia for hosting, and to Ryan for inviting us all to do this. Yeah, I'm on an island. I am actually far from the city of Vancouver and from all other cities, really, for that matter, which is kind of weird, but I'm lucky to be here also, and I'm lucky to have my bass here with me, and I'm just gonna play you a little something on it. This is Stomping at the Savoy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jen, tell us about what kind of education you're coming from.
Yeah. So um, I grew up with a lot of music in the house. Both of my parents are play music for fun. My dad plays guitar, and my mom plays. She played classical flute, and as well as she's from England, and she plays all variety of different English folk music, such as the concertina type of squeeze box, and penny whistle, wooden flutes, that kind of thing. And we always had different kinds of music playing on the stereo in the house. My parents listened to classical music and different kinds of classic rock and folk music from the 60s and that kind of thing. So and my mom played in the local concert band. So I was, exposed to a lot of music, and I always knew I was going to play music. It was just a matter of what and when. But I started on electric bass because around the time I was going to start playing, I discovered the music of the Beatles, and I was like, that's what I want to do. So you couldn't play guitar in the concert band at school, but you could play electric bass. So that's what I started to do. And then I had no idea. I was 11 at that time. Had no idea that choosing the bass would give me so many opportunities, because everyone needs a bass player. So and coming from this small town, on an isolated little landmass, there was just not really people playing the bass, but lots of music going on. So I got to play in like pit orchestras and in rock bands and in, I don't know, you name it, including some little jazz combos. And then when it was time for me to go to school, oh yeah, one thing we didn't have was an orchestra. It was just not enough kids in this region playing orchestral instruments for there to be an orchestra. So when at the time I was applying for schools, like, because I wanted to go on into music, and coming from the background I did in this part of the world, it that was what you did. You like, I'm gonna go on to this career, so I'm gonna go to university for it. And the options were classical and jazz, and I just didn't have enough experience to apply for any classical programs. So I applied for some jazz programs, and that's what I did. I went to jazz school, and I went to Vancouver to do that. And somewhere along the line there, sorry. I think I've definitely learned more, I would say, from my experience playing music and from meeting and picking the brains of musicians that I admire, and playing with musicians that I admire and look up to, than I learned in going to school. And so I'm always nervous when I'm the one to talk about education, because there was yeah, sorry,
Life education. This is
yeah.
life experience education, and
Yeah.
really, I consider it one of the most important parts of one's growth, because actually it never ends. You're constantly learning.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, you should always keep that in mind too. I think it's so important. Like, there's, even the greatest musicians that have ever lived have continued to strive to be better every day. Like, I think that's a really important part about being a musician, to, not to like be down on yourself, but to always expect yourself to strive to be better every day. So yeah, I mean, I think of, like, what is education? Because it is one thing to have a piece of paper that says that you got up at 8 every day and went to a classroom for 4 years. But like, does that prepare you for a life of starting work at 9 p.m. every day and, you know, getting home at 5 and living out of a van? And yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm grateful that I have all of those different experiences. But I think
This
even
should
though,
be taught, I think, in the formal education, if you don't mind me saying, Jen, that actually there should be a classes, and I know that there actually are programs that require these classes where musicians figure out how to make a living. You know, it's given to them, you know, these habits, right? Budgets, schedules, regimens, you know, routines, a way to community build, infiltration. You know, this is actually a lot of higher education institutions have actually implemented this. I know a woman at the Curtis Institute, Mary Javin, who's a bass player, who is just a wonderful bass player, and she talks about this, like actually doing what you're doing, and you know, having it be part of a program.
cool. That's great to hear. I'm definitely encouraged to hear that. Right. So I did make a bunch of notes, even though I feel like my talking isn't the most coherent. But when we were doing our tech run the other day, something that stuck out to me was we were talking about education, and Missy said, "Well, I'm not educated," and I'm thinking like, "Girl, you're 8-time best bluegrass bass player of the year." Like, maybe, yeah, I mean, they're not going to give that to you if you're not the best. You're totally a badass, you know. Maybe it doesn't actually matter if you don't have a piece of paper that, although maybe the bluegrass bass player of the year award is a piece of paper, I don't know. But like, you know, you don't have to go to school to be Missy Raines, obviously. Like, so so I think that that's a perfect example of why and how we shouldn't necessarily put more weight on like education than like the school of hard knocks.
Mm.
So many of the
Very well
greatest
said.
musicians that I can think of that I've always looked up to never went to school. You know, like I earlier in my talking mentioned, like one of the reasons I play bass at all is because I got excited about the Beatles, and you know, they didn't go to music school. Not to say that they didn't know anything about what they were doing, but you can gain that knowledge, and you can sure make a lot of powerful music with it. I don't know. It's basically anything that can give you any kind of tools or inspiration is valid and maybe should count as education, whether it's formal or informal.
Absolutely, here.
Cool.
Now, bringing up Missy because she's talking and playing next.
Cool.
Yeah, Georgia, do you want to introduce Missy?
Sure, yes, will do. That was kind of a perfect segue there, I think. We have Missy Raines with us today. That's right, the eight-time winner. Is it, or did you just win last year for the 9th time? I think you're done it 8 times.
Just 8 times, yeah.
8 times. She's won the Bassist of the Year through IBMA 8 times. And Missy also has her newest album was Grammy nominated last year. And she tours full-time with her bluegrass band and teaches on Artist Works. She's had a feature in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and it's been very inspirational to many people in the U.S., including myself. When I first bought an upright bass, I did not know how I was going to learn, so I hopped on Artist Works and I took the Missy Raines bluegrass, and it was awesome. Very helpful. Do you want to tell us about your experience with education or how you learned and all that?
Sure. I mean, I loved what you were saying, Jen, about the you know, the comparisons between a studied kind of background and a not studied background. And I was sitting here thinking how much I would have loved to have gone to school, you know, to learn music, except that at the time, that's the last thing I wanted to do. Like now, looking back, I think, oh, geez, you know, that would have been so great. But at the time, all I wanted to do was play in a bluegrass band, you know, and I'm meaning the time when I got out of high school. And so my parents, to their folly, that's what they let me do. I mean, they just said, sure, go play in a bluegrass band. And so that's what I did. And you know, but I'd also spent so many years, those early years of, from about 12 years old to in my early 20s, playing with other people, jamming, but it was almost all bluegrass. I did start listening to jazz somewhere around in my mid-teens, and I got opened up to a whole new world of music. But I definitely came in from the bluegrass world through that door. And so for a long time, that was my biggest that was my biggest world. But then, like I said, I started listening to jazz mostly because of a few bluegrass artists who had started melding some bluegrass and jazz together, folks like David Grisman and you know, later Tony Rice and people like that, who came in and were doing some fusion kinds of acoustic music, which opened my mind up to listening to jazz. And through that, then I started listening to all kinds of things. And of course, today, you know, continue on all these years, try to open, you know, up to as many things as possible, because that helps me as a player, I think. So yeah, I've many times actually wished that I did have more of a musical foundation background. So I would say to anyone, you know, the young folks that are out there today, I still think it's a great way to go. But at the same time, it's clearly, you don't have to do it to sort of, you know, eke out a living. But you know, because really making it in this business, as we all know, like all of us here and all of, you know, it has so little to do with one thing. It has to do with, you know, like 10 things, and then maybe 20 other things attached to those 10 big things. And I'm talking about, you know, just sheer tenacity, the passion for it, being creative. And by that, I mean, not so much the artistic part, but just figuring out different ways of making your music, you know, work and being able to function in this world. So I may be digressing a little bit here from the education part, but I think that you know, trying to make it as a musician requires just a whole lot of things, and schooling can be part of that, but it's not absolutely necessary. But you know, it can definitely enhance a part of what you're doing. So I came about it definitely from a very, as I think I mentioned the other day, a very organic place. And so for years, I just played. I worked for a lot of great artists within the bluegrass genre, as a bass player, and loved that gig. Just tell me where to go and I show up and just play bass for these people, and got to learn a lot of great things. And somewhere along the line, of course, I'm listening to music all the time and just loving it. And I decided that I really wanted to have my own band. And I also would have to say that in those early years, I wasn't singing. I might sing a harmony part or something, but I really wasn't singing. It wasn't something that I was interested in, I thought. But as I was getting older, I realized I was interested in singing. But I had to find my own way. And I don't know, some of that came from having, in bluegrass, when I was growing up, there weren't as many women singers as there are now. But anyway, so I started wanting to have my own band, and realizing that I needed to find my voice in two ways. Obviously my actual voice, but I also needed to figure out what it was I wanted to say musically. So that kind of, that's sort of my segue into the inspiration part of this. I don't know, is this the time to go with that? Yes, okay.
You got some, yeah, you've got a few more minutes. We would love to hear you play something too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was gonna play a song that I wrote, but I needed to set it up a little bit. So this goes into the inspiration and trying to find my voice. And through these last 10, 12 years, I've been trying to have a band, trying to create my version of some sort of a bluegrass fused music that relates to a young girl from West Virginia when I started, which, like I said, there wasn't anyone doing sort of what I'm doing right now when I started doing it, in terms of leading your own band as a bass player and as a woman in bluegrass. So I started, knowing that I needed to write music, and I wanted to write music. So again, I'm coming at it from the non-compositional aspect. But this was a song. I'm going to play a song on the bass, a little bit of a tune that I wrote, and my inspiration. Folks ask me all the time, where do you get your inspiration? How do you get inspiration? How do you get inspired to write? So one of the things that happened for me was, this was at an absolute emotional level. So I lost my father when I was only about 20 years old. And so I didn't write this song for another like 18 years later or so. So, but what I did was I tried to look at it as sort of an exercise, thinking I'm just going to write a song, and I went at it from this kind of heady place, but then I ended up sitting with it long enough, meaning like sitting in a room, quiet, and allowing myself to think and to feel the emotion long enough that I just played. I literally just played things, and I recorded it. But then I kept playing, and most of it was just like, nothing. It was just, it clearly was just stuff coming out and licks that I knew, or just nothing. But then I reached a point where something happened. My mind had opened up enough. I'd gotten quiet enough. I really don't know exactly, but I started crying. But I stayed playing, and I started crying more, and I started feeling some real emotion that I had not allowed myself to feel for a long time, and I kept playing. And I literally kept recording all of this, and in the middle of that section is where this song came out. And so I just kept it as it was. It's very simple. The melody is very, very sparse. But that's what I wanted it to be. So that was, I don't write like that very often. I think that would like be exhausting, but it was a really powerful thing for me. And so the first half of the song is meant to be the longing and the pain of loss. And then the second half of it, which is a little bit shorter, is meant to describe the hope that comes after, like once you get through some of the loss and the pain, that there is hope on the other side. So I'll play it for you. It's called the Ides of March.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Really wonderful. Well, what's one of the positives about COVID and stay at home and pandemic is, of course, that you get to connect with people in all different parts of the world. And we have Francesca Alinovi.
Yes, Alinovi.
Alinovi. And Francesca is quite a player, and I wanted to talk just a little bit about her. She's originally from Parma, Italy. She is renowned as one of the most versatile and expressive bass players in rock and roll, blues, country, traditional jazz, and coming from Italy, combining the root sounds with the progressive slap and the really strong feeling for the jazz music. Francesca has enjoyed long-standing partnerships with some incredible artists, including Paolo Roberto Pianizia and her band called the Lovesick Duo. And she's done things with, and I will ask you to pronounce these beautiful names, Alessandro Costantino.
Alessandro Cosentino, great.
Ivano Zanotti.
Ivano Zanotti.
Mecco Guidi.
Mecco
Guidi and Gloria Torini.
Yes.
Emiliano Vernisi.
Yes.
And Stefano Barigazzi.
Great. Great. You speak Italian very well.
Please take it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this beautiful presentation that you said to me and to everyone. Thank you everyone to enjoying this webinar. And I'm really excited to be a part of this Austin Best Hang, that I'm not from Austin and I'm not from US. And I really didn't know that it could happen before in my life. Really, this COVID bring me up a lot of incredible thing. And this is one of the, I hope not the last one, but because here in Italy the quarantine period is finished. So it's finished 1 month ago. So we are outside now. So I'm inside of this period, but not too much. So I hope that if it will end in US too. But I'm really happy to know the story about every bass player here. That I didn't know one of them before. So I'm really excited, and I hope that everyone can understand my English. So my musical education came from classical music, because before I played piano, and then I changed and I played electric bass. But because I started when I was 8 years old, and I always study in a school, I thought that I need a school also for the bass. And so all of my life, I'm starting to listen a lot of music, but for playing, I always need a piece of paper to read, because I wasn't able to listen and play notes without read anything. I thought it was the only way to learn music, because in my family nobody play, and my mom just listened Italian music, and also she's not a great singer too, so she thought that me and my sister couldn't sing because she wasn't able to do it. So I always had a very empty space between music and a piece of paper, you know what I mean? There was always an empty space that I didn't recognize it before I took a double bass with me. Because it's big, you know, but also because I felt the feeling like that was my very first instrument that I always need. And when I tried a double bass, I thought that maybe I didn't need a piece of paper to play it, because it was like something new, totally, and it was totally another life for me. Starting with the same year that I changed my life, I quit very different jobs, and it was something very new for everything. But I felt that it was the only way in which I can feel myself well and happy, and the only thing that I could do in my life very well, because I love music, but also I love talk with people, stay with other people, and stay and having fun. But also it's the only way that I can have money to do it, because usually you spend money to enjoy time with people and having fun, right? I mean, take a coffee, have a party, or go a concert, or everywhere you need money. But in this way, you can have everything. And also, you can go around the world if you are lucky to do it. And so this mix was great in that moment. So I quit job and I bought a double bass from eBay. That time was like something very, scary. And it was a Chinese bass, but it was imported in US. And then I bought from US to Italy, and it came perfect in my home. But after 2 minutes, I put in a vertical way, and I closed to two chairs to stand up. I mean, I thought it can be stand up, and in the same moment it fell down. So I broke after 2 months that I was waiting for. And so this was my first experience with the bass. And then after 3 years that I started to love rock and roll music, blues, and I went in different part of Italy to listen some rock and roll concert, to see double bass player, because I didn't understand how they can play the slap, how they can play without a piece of paper, without the frets on the fingerboard. So I always looking at it and ask as many questions as I could. And then I finally decided to go to school again, just only because I thought I need a teacher for that, not just traveling all around Italy, but something, you know, that I have physically in the same city. So I moved to Bologna and I studied here 3 years, and then I went to Rovigo, that is another close town from Bologna, in which I studied the last 2 years, and I'm graduated this June finally, and I'm so happy. And I study jazz music because I didn't want to study classical anymore, and the jazz music opened more my mind and my ears to different sound, and it opened also to a music that doesn't need words, because in the last 10 years I always sing songs with lyrics, you know. And also I didn't I wasn't able to listen jazz. For me, it was something completely absurd, without a start, without an end, without a story. I didn't understand anything. And then finally I can listen the dialogue between the musicians. That for me was something new. And I learned bossa nova. I learned a lot of styles that I didn't know before. I went to the school like a rock and roll player, rockabilly player, and I was able only to do the slap. And so I felt myself always an outsider for that. And also an outsider because I always playing outside. I mean, I touring a lot since I was 16, and people also today, most of them don't understand how I can study and play so much. But it's just because I loved what I'm doing, and I love people, and I have a lot of human relationship with a lot of people. And so, yeah.
Will you play something? Will you?
Yeah, I want to play something that came from the jazz, but before the jazz, something that came very far from my tradition and very far from the school. But it came from America, and I love your music. Every time of your music. I hope that you can see me and listen me. Is okay? Okay. So I share with you a technique that I found in Nashville, but it's very old, and it's a technique like with a slap and then a brush with a pad, so you can listen notes, the groove, and the groove. So I'm just doing a little groove of a song that I love, and it's called Good Old Clover, and I play. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was so awesome. So have you, I just wanted to ask you real quick before we moved on, did you start with the brush, learning that like when, during the pandemic or before?
Little bit time before, because I was in Nashville in the 2018, and I started to understand how to build a pad, and then how to take the brush and slap and do the groove. So during the pandemic, I didn't have to do anything except study and play with Logic Duo at home. And so I'm starting to do the 2 and the 4. That it's very hard to think about it, because it's one, and in your hand it has to do a movement in the same way. So it's kind of changed my technique also, you know. So yeah, it was a great way to study something new, and new for everyone. I mean, here in Italy, nobody's playing this kind of thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Pretty rare in the US too, and so cool. I guess I would take this minute to, I want to move on and introduce Katie. Let me pull up your bio real quick. We got the Sunshine Girl, California Sunshine Girl with us today. Katie lives in the West Coast, and she has made a name for herself playing 20s and 30s classic jazz, which is awesome. Since 2011, she's worked at Disneyland with the Ellis Island Boys, the Pixarmonic, that's awesome, that's a Spike Jones novelty band, and Mostly Kosher, which is a klezmer band. And I also want to hear more about, it says that you've had a residency at Opera Comique in Paris. That was 3 years from 06 to 09. And welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear a song from you or hear something from you, and then talk more about your education background and how you got to be where you are.
I'll play something first, and like Jen, maybe I'll get the nerves out, and then I can talk. So we'll try that. Okay. Let's see. Can you see me? Enough? Okay. This is going to be a song. Well, it's just an old song. It has roots in trad jazz and Western swing and everything. It's called "Who Walks In When I Walk Out." Who walks in when I walk out? Who gives you the high, baby? Who's the who? Got me jealous of you. Who walks in when I walk out? Now don't you know you're my baby? Who's the who? Got me worrying too. Now when we kiss, I kinda miss something that used to be. Every day when I'm away, get the feeling that you're pulling me off. Who walks in when I walk out? Who gives you the high, baby? Who's the who? Got me jealous of you. I kinda miss something that used to be. Every day when I'm away, who walks in when I walk out? Who gives you the high, baby? Who's the who? Got me jealous of you. Got me worrying too. Got me jealous of you. That's it.
Excellent. Great song choice.
Thank you. All right. So let's see. I come at the bass from kind of a strange background. I actually started, well, let's go all the way back. I started having a fascination with ragtime piano when I was about 3 years old. And that's because of a movie called The Sting, which came out. My mom was obsessed with it, so I was obsessed with it. And I really wanted to play that style piano, so I started taking piano lessons when I was 7 years old. And about the same time, I also really wanted to learn to play the banjo. My mom had a 5-string bluegrass banjo in the closet, and I really liked it. So the deal was, if I took piano lessons for 2 years and didn't quit, I could have the banjo. So that's what I did. I had the piano lessons first, and on my 9th birthday, I got the banjo, started learning bluegrass banjo, but I was still obsessed with ragtime piano. And then all of this kind of came together in the perfect storm because I have very tiny hands, so the ragtime piano is kind of a hard thing to do. You gotta have big, stretchy fingers to get those octaves. And my cousin, who also knew I was interested in banjo, gave me his 4-string banjo, and I came to the realization that I could play ragtime piano style on the banjo with the 4-string banjo. So that got me really interested in trad jazz, and I was obsessed with it, absolutely obsessed with it. And I studied that as best as I could in Indiana, where there are not a lot of trad jazz bands or players, but that's okay. I did have one teacher in Evansville, Indiana, and I learned pretty much by ear. He would just say, do this, and I'd do that, and play like this and play that. You want to learn a song? Okay, I think we're in B flat, just follow me, that kind of stuff. So that was my banjo education. And when I got in college, I found a Dixieland banjo band that I could play with and make money. And that was a big revelation because I can make money doing this. That's incredible, you know? So I wanted to study music in college, but they really didn't have a banjo degree. I went to Indiana University, and I ended up getting a theater degree. I was a theater major, which kind of allowed me to do a lot of music stuff on the sidelines. And at the same time, there was a professor there, David Baker, who took an interest in me and had me play in some of his bands and take a lot of classes. And he was just a really wonderful mentor. So when I got out of college, I fell in love and married my college sweetheart. We ended up moving out to LA, and I knew I wanted to do music with my life, but how to go about it, you know, I guess that's everybody's question. So I just started to try to find people to play with and play everywhere I could, starting with, you know, just little jazz clubs that met for fun. There was a group out here called the San Fernando Valley Banjo Band. I think they still exist. It's a bunch of retired people that there's like 20 banjos that get together and play all at once. It's kind of hilarious and fun. So things like that led to finding other things like proper bands that needed a banjo player to play. So then I started to get work. That was great. But let's see. Working in LA, there are a lot of people out here, you know, hundreds and hundreds of really great, highly educated, highly skilled musicians. So I think maybe by default or accident, I don't know, my focus became, how can I be like the big fish in the small pond rather than the, you know, the big fish amongst all the fishes, you know. So trad jazz was kind of a small pond out here. There were a few groups doing it and a few people playing it, and you know, some swing dances and things like that where people were seeking this kind of music out. So I started doing some things like that. And one of the first steady gigs I got was doing just kind of like a brunch casual gig. And the guy who hired me came up to me after a festival and said, do you sing? I could really use a banjo player that sings on this brunch gig I have. And I said, yeah. Well, I'd never sung before, you know, I just wanted the gig. So I quickly learned a few songs I could sing. I played the gig with him that weekend. He liked me. And then for the next, I don't know, maybe about 3 years, I had a steady Sunday gig where I could learn how to sing and play banjo, and it was great. So at that time, I also met some other great musicians who said, you know, you would get more work if you could double on guitar. So then, you know, have to work on the guitar, got that as a double. So there's another way, another thing I could do. Started getting more swing dances and work like that, which was great. And then finally, I guess it was about 2000 or 2001, sometime around there, where someone said, you know, we're really short of bass players in this style. And at the same time, too, I was hearing a lot of more modern bass players trying to play this style, and to my feeling, not doing it justice, not doing it right. So I thought, well, I want to do this and I want to make it sound right. So then I started studying the bass, and that's how I additionally became a bass player. So it's been kind of a long, twisty road, but you know, looking at everybody here, and you're all amazing and have great accomplishments, but it seems like we're all really focused people, aren't we? It's like we just want this so bad, so you just kind of have to find your way through the forest. And it's amazing. It's just heartening to see you guys here and see how great you've all done and how it's all worked out for you. And it just inspires me. It makes me know that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm going to keep doing this, and who knows what's going to happen next.
That's awesome. Reading the comments too, I feel like we got a lot of people out there that feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's been.
Here's the thing too. You know, it's you can play a lot of styles and be a monster musician, as many of you here are, but you can also focus in on what you really, really, truly love. And for me, it's that sweet spot, that 20s and 30s jazz. And you can just be the best you that you are. I mean, everybody has something unique they can bring to a band or an orchestra or any ensemble they play in. And what you really have to do is figure out what makes you specifically you and capitalize on that, emphasize that, you know, bring your special personality and uniqueness to whatever you do. And clearly I can see that everybody here has done that. But it just inspires me to think that there's so many more people out there that can do this, that can share what makes them unique with a band or with an ensemble. And those are people I want to meet too and play with, because if you're an inspired musician, it doesn't matter what genre you play. You know, you bring that to your group and you bring that excitement. And so I hope to play with all of you guys someday.
Us too. I think that what you just said was kind of a perfect segue into like the next bit that we wanted to chat about, which is kind of like inspiration, definitely. And I'm reading the comments here, and even on just what you just said, there's a lot of people are feeling inspired. And I also wanted to talk about improv and activism and like kind of gender and social issues in performing. And since we got you on the line, I'll just go ahead and start with you. And I wanted to pick your brain about, you know, endurance and hustling in the big city, and if you have any particular like gender experiences with that, or gender notes, or just like keeping motivated and keeping working, and what that experience is like.
Well, you know, there's a lot of simple things you can do, like just show up on time, know what you're supposed to do, know what you need to do for the part. I feel like something that's gotten me a long way out here, just piecing together my career such as it is. I started at Disney, for example. I started playing with a swing group there, which I was very comfortable with. We were an outside band that was brought into the park as an ensemble to play, and it was wonderful. And I played with them for a good stretch, and then they changed their format and decided not to use those kind of bands anymore. And they invited me to come, because they saw me in that band, they invited me to come play with the Pixarmonic band. Now this is something that's a little foreign to me. It's reading, everything's highly arranged, you memorize the show. It's like a show from top to bottom. You memorize jokes, you memorize lines, you have to dance. I had to learn dance steps. That was crazy, that was hard. But now I can't play any of those songs without doing the dance steps. It doesn't work. So I learned how to do that, and that was super fun and a totally unique experience. And then that band went away. I mean, they changed things a lot there. Things come and go. So then I wasn't working there, but then I got a call because of a different band I worked with. I work in a children's folk music band. I play banjo with a bass player and an accordion player that play in this very popular klezmer band. And the bass player needed a sub, and he said, you want to be my sub in this band for the holiday season? And I said, I've never played klezmer music in my life. He's like, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. You know, so he liked me. He liked what I brought to the band. He trusted me enough that he's like, she's got a good work ethic. She will get the job done. She will do this. So I worked my butt off, but I had a blast playing klezmer music this past season with those guys. And hopefully if we're back there again, who knows, for the holidays, I'll be back there with them again as a sub. So you just got to find your hustle and be open to trying new things. But I think having a good work ethic and doing all the little things, showing up on time, and you know, all those tiny things make a big difference, because a lot of people out here don't. You know, any big city, I think there's going to be a lot of flaky people and people that don't just do the job. So I think if you just do the basic job, you're already ahead of the game.
The basic job.
The basic job.
The basic job.
Yeah, Katie, thank you so much. That was really inspiring, and I'm again just humbled to be in like the presence of these really extraordinary ladies. I'd like to talk a little bit more about inspiration, social, gender issues. You know, I'll even talk a little bit about education. I know that here on the webinar, I have a couple of my students and a couple of my colleagues too, and we're all classical double bassists who have interest and want to always be educated in different genres of music. I tell my students from age 6, 7, 8, whatever age they come to me, that it is important to be able to read a lead sheet. It is important to always be able to play different types of bass lines to not only do your solo and classical music, your orchestral, your chamber music as part of your education, if that is the way that you choose, but the importance of being able to get out there and be that hired instrumentalist, you know, and your role as a bass player, like your role, it's rhythm, it's harmony, it's, you know, whether it's pizzicato or with the with the bow, you know, it's so many different things. Now, I was lucky to start bass right here in Austin, Texas, so I feel like I'm a definite, you know, genuine Austin, Texas bass player. I started in 6th grade here. I wanted to be a percussionist, but evidently this music aptitude test that I was given was, you know, came back, oh, she shouldn't be a percussionist, she has no rhythm. So I came home crying, I think, and my mother was like, play the next best thing. And I said, what's that? And she said, the bass. And so the next day I went to the orchestra teacher and I said, I want to play bass. And she looked at me and she said, well, you're tall. That'll help, you know. So she throws me the double bass. And the first lines of Missy and all you extraordinary, you know, gypsy swing and hillbilly and improvisational instrumentalists here. My first type of music was bluegrass. My mom was married to a percussionist, and I played bluegrass, and those were my first technique books. So I felt like I got a sense of, you know, perhaps a simple amount of harmonic structure and the use of open strings and straight ahead rhythms that propelled me forward in the orchestral place, because that's where I went. I played classical music and I did it all the way through. And I found, you know, gigging in orchestras, getting to play chamber music and solo repertoire was beautiful. It was fulfilling to a certain extent, because you're always playing somebody else's music, right? And perhaps the conductor's interpretation blending with the section, you know. But I always felt like I needed a little bit more. Like, if I am not being creatively fulfilled as a straight ahead gig artist, I'm not being fulfilled. It's just not happening. And so it was probably about 10, 12 years ago, I started to do, based on, you know, a lot of my technique, I did free improvisation. And so I've thrown in, you know, in addition to any of my faculty recitals or performances that I get to do at these wonderful clinics that I'm involved with all over the country, I will always, in part of my performance program, throw in a free improvisation with an intention. Like, I'll just throw in a title, or I'll think of, you know, a color, or perhaps, you know, a phrase or a poet. And I have to tell you that that's my intention, and I may not think about it for, you know, the month in advance that they needed the program. But once I have that intention, I'll go in and I'll use, you know, these places that I go, orchestra, you know, jazz ensembles, tango groups. I've been lucky to play with a lot of bluegrass groups too. And then I will just use what sort of comes from, I feel that is, you know, something outside of ourselves, use myself as a musical vehicle and just see what happens. And it could be a 30-second thing, it could be a 5-minute thing, but the time that we're living in right now, and being a confident instrumentalist, a confident musician, I'm wanting to bring awareness to things that are very important, like Black lives, like Indigenous lives, like, you know, these unwarranted, unruling wars that are going on in the, you know, around the world, poverty. I mean, really, let's just sort of name it. We've got a plethora of things that really we can put creative juices towards, that we can put focused love and power, being empowered women of the double bass. Okay. So I wanted to say how important that is in this time, in this day and age, that we use our powers for good, which I know all of us do. I know all of us do. I'd like to say one quick thing before I play something, is that a lot of times I will, and I know a lot of bass players that feel like this, I will go into a practice session or a rehearsal or even a concert with an intention, with gratitude. I don't know about y'all, but I got so lucky. I had a mom who just supported me. Oh, she sold her jewelry to buy my first bass. Like, you know, so I think about her when I go to play. And I'm just filled with gratitude. So my space is warm, right? And so I find that my space goes faster when I have an intention in any sort of musical endeavor. So even when I'm practicing my Beethoven, or having to, you know, whip out my Eccles sonata, you know, whatever it is, I'm trying to have a gratitude that now being, I think I may be the oldest panelist here. I'm not sure. Missy's giving me the side eye. I don't know. But there have always been perhaps gender insecurities from other people that have come up through the years, right? Because of our choice of instrument, because it really has been, you know, up until about 50 years ago, a male dominated instrument. But I want all of us, everybody here that's part of this webinar, that's part of the panelists, that it's no longer an issue. We're bass players. And I think each of us have these really powerful individual things to bring to our music, to the people that we're connecting with, that it's, you know, doesn't matter if you're a trans Black woman playing the double bass, you're a bass player. It's just across the board. So I think we could be really positive about that and have it be a non-issue. And when you are faced with perhaps misogyny or things, of course, that come up just because so many people can be ignorant, that you just smile and, you know, just keep doing what you're doing. And if you need to report them, do it. So I'm going to play a little something here. I've been lucky to study with lots of incredible bass players through my life. I'm still studying with incredible bass players. Francois Raboff is a teacher of mine. He's a great performer. He's an incredible composer, pedagogue. And if you've ever seen him live, you'll probably never be the same again. But I'm going to play his Ode de España. It's a modal 2-minute piece. Sort of gives you the impression of somewhere in Spain, like perhaps a bullfight. I'd like to dedicate this performance to all of you, of course, and to my good friend Jeffrey Eccles.
I gotta say, I was tearing up at the beginning of the song and then just smiling so big by the end of it.
Thank you, guys. If you don't know Francois Rabott's music, go and spend $20 at liebenmusic.com and get yourself his book of solos. And if you don't be overwhelmed by what you're looking at, because I have been experimenting with a lot of my advanced students on Zoom, and I'm teaching them by rote, the stuff from the book. And they don't see the book until like 3 or 4 songs in, 3 or 4 tunes in, and then they look and they go, oh my God, am I playing that? So this is all, everyone here can play Rabath. Everyone here can play Bach, and I like to do free improvisation that I said, can be politically induced, can be theatrically induced. I really like to use poetry, and I have a huge operatic voice that's sort of wild that perhaps some of you know. But if I don't have that creative spark, like, I'm unhappy. I have to have that creative spark in my cooking. I have to have it in my parenting. I have to have it in, perhaps how I take care of my car. If it's just this same old all the time, I'm unhappy. But it's been a challenge during this COVID without any performing, which a lot of you here know. I mean, I've lost over half of my work, more than half if you consider, all of my performing is gone until at least December. But what have I been doing? Teaching. What I've been also doing is getting really, really aware of what is happening in the United States right now and all over the world, really, with the recognizing of people of color and how a huge amount of our history has been whitewashed, and there's so much that so many different cultures have to offer to the human race. Like, we just have to get over ourselves, all of us. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I think we need to move on. We get to, who's next to talk again? I want to hear you do something else.
Sorry, I missed what you just last said.
Oh, Georgia, you're next. Yes.
I actually wanted to talk to Missy, because I thought there was like a really good segue in there, about just, from listening to you earlier and from what I know, I mean, you've been playing bluegrass for a really long time, and started at a young age. And I wanted to catch your experience. I know, like, from touring with bluegrass bands and going to bluegrass festivals, it's a pretty wild genre out there that's changed a lot in the last, 40 years or so. And there's so many different, like, it is kind of interesting because it's a very old genre that had a revival, and I feel like there's maybe like some politics and like subgenres and things like that. But I just wanted to get your perspective on what it's been like over time for you to be a woman playing bass in the bluegrass world.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Jessica, you are such a badass. I mean, oh my God.
Look who's talking, please. You're sweet.
Okay. But, it's interesting what you're saying, Georgia, about the bluegrass going through sort of, what was your word? Like a
revival, I think.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but it struck a nerve when you said it. Actually, I think that bluegrass has gone through like a dozen revivals through the years, and I've been around for a lot of them, but not all of them. So I want to try not to go down too many wrong paths here, or just rambly paths, but I feel like there's so much happening right now, obviously, it's easy to think that this is like the biggest change that we've ever experienced, and it may be so far. We've made huge when I say we, bluegrass has made these incredible steps forward in terms of opening up our world to everyone else. I think we've always been that way, but we've been perceived as not being an open and diverse community. That's been our problem, is not being perceived as such. And there's been reasons why that has been so. I definitely experienced, sexism when I first started. I've experienced it throughout my career, for sure. And that's the part that I can personally relate to. And it has gotten so much better. And having started out my career working with mostly, almost primarily, but not fully. Sorry, my cat is about to join us here. Starting out my career with mostly performing with men and occasional women, and being in that environment in the climate with those men, lots of really great men, but there was a climate that was different than it is now. And these days, and most of those men at the time, because I was young, most of those men were older. So there was this whole landscape that was happening. And, but now, and for some years now, having my own band and hiring much younger musicians, many of them, but not all of them, have been young guys. The climate is completely different because, and it's been fascinating to me to hear perspectives from the men growing up today, and hearing that perspective, and I think it's all great, because what I'm experiencing is an absolute mindset change, from men. And I'm sorry, I just can't control it. If I try to control it, it'll whirl out of, she cannot be denied. Anyway, so I feel like this climate has really, it's gotten so much better. We've, become so much more diverse. I personally have been involved at a leadership level for years and years, working on with the International Bluegrass Music Association, trying to create more diverse and open, and not just for sexuality, but for equality, for the LGBT world, for racism, like all of those things. I'm sorry, I just spilled water and my cat's now licking it off the desk. So I'm sure my life is falling apart right here as I'm trying to concentrate. But so I think we've come a long ways, to try not to be too rambly. But we have a long way to go. And but I'm so encouraged by what I have seen and like I said, experienced with like my bandmates of today, and bandmates that and like I know tons of people who are my age and older who are welcoming these kinds of changes. But I feel like bluegrass definitely has been stereotyped as being a white man's music, and with good reason from the beginning. But we all know that it isn't. It's just a matter, we know that it isn't. But now we're starting to, those doors are really starting to open up. And speaking of, I'll just share this one quick little story, because I loved what you were saying, Jessica, about the, our role as activists, as artists. And I've never, one thing that I did, one of my brothers was gay and actually ended up passing away in 1994 from due to complications of AIDS. And so for some of you, you're not going to remember this time, but there was a time when AIDS killed you outright. And there was also a time when, and this, I've been reminded of this a lot lately, because there was a time when AIDS was very much like the pandemic that we're in right now, because there was no cure, but there was also so much and disinformation about it, because people thought you got it by touching someone. Well, in fact, you don't. You have to pass, it has to pass through blood. But at the time, in the 80s, people didn't know that. And so there was this huge stigma attached to it, of course. And so I know that a lot of us know all of these things, but I'm just setting up the climate here. So for me, living through this as a bluegrass musician in the 80s, trying to deal with the situation that I went through with my brother, and then ended up, taking care of him as he got sick and passed away, and actually getting off the road to do so. And then trying to communicate to my people, my family, being my music family, my bluegrass world people. Oh, well, what's wrong with your brother? Well, he has AIDS. And so how do you bring that conversation up in a world that has a reputation for not being that open? And it was hard. And I thought I actually did have to check things that I said sometimes. And I did have to censor. I tried to censor myself, but then I stopped censoring myself, and I realized that, I didn't need to do that. And there were, but one of the things that I did do was I had, a T-shirt that said, World AIDS Day or something like that on it. And I would be at camps, I would be at festivals, and I would wear this shirt over and over and over, because it was a conversation starter. Because it was a way of saying something without actually just getting in someone's face, but it allowed people to come to me and say, oh, I know someone, or I have someone that is dealing with that right now. And I just say that really quickly because it's a great way, as an artist, if you're not like singing activist songs necessarily, but there's so many things that you can do to open the conversation for people, to bring them to you. And there's ways that you can do that so that they feel safe to do that. And so I just wanted to throw that out.
I wanted to kind of follow up, have a little addendum on that too. Is I've just, with everything that's been going on, and being someone that lives in Texas and plays Western swing music, I feel like is like a kind of similar, historically like similar genre to bluegrass, in that it's like, it is the white man's music of Texas, and have definitely been kind of going back and forth and struggling with like the music that I'm playing and like the message that it's sending, and like how that relates to current events. And you mentioned, protest songs and things like that. And like, there's definitely, I've just been like thinking about this a lot, and kind of coming to a place of like, the power of like playing music like that, and like it builds trust amongst people, like the fans of the music, and then you can, after that trust is built through the music, you can open up a conversation about something, and it's, I feel like, more often received better with the foundation of the common ground of music underneath it. I'm sure there's a lot of bluegrass fans, like you were saying, with the AIDS shirt, that that just did not get it, and like knowing that they had already respect for you and loved your music, were more willing to listen to what you had to say. So I've just been kind of struggling and dealing with that in my own mind. Jessica, do you think we should we move on to some, should we move on?
Oh, yes, let's talk a little bit about wellness, because I know, and we're going to just do this for maybe the next 10 minutes and then open up the last 20 minutes or so to questions. And if anybody else, if wants to share anything with us, perhaps if you have any really important takeaways, if you wanted to add something in the conversation. Francesca is going to talk about some how to stay well and sustain your physical aptitude, or focus, what have we. Here she is. And I'll talk a little bit about a few stretches I do on a regular basis.
Great, great to hear you all the stories. And yes, there was a question before, and maybe I can answer later. It was a question for me. I don't know. Tell me, Jessica, if I have to answer now or later.
Oh, yes. Whatever you want. It's your time. Yes.
Okay. I talked before about the yoga, because for me it was hard to play bass for 2 hours. Most of the time, just with the duo, the support of the music, like bluegrass too. But in general, the bass support everyone. But in the music where it's not the drum, you have to play 2 roles in the same way, so in the same time. So for me, it's important to be in health, your body that is great, and you have to take care of yourself to live long and play long, but also to be prepared, like like a runner, like everyone that is a professionist. And like a professionist, you need to be ready when you go on the stage. Nobody wants to pay a ticket to see somebody like, crappy. I mean, if you are not in that way, you have to be prepared, do something for the public, for the audience. So like study on the bass, but before the bass, your body needs to be okay to get ready to do it. And I always play as a pitcher in a softball team until I was 25. And then I started to play music a lot, so I have to quit. But I always feel myself like I need to do sports, so I started the yoga and a technique. It's called Alexander technique. That is great because you have to breathe and do an exercise like the yoga thing. And I want to share you something. You need to be yourself and the bass, like a human being and an instrument. Not that you be together, like I'm attached on the bass or the bass is on me, but I'm a human being and then I play the bass. That it's really important because you need to be like a tree, very solid tree, and with flowers and fruits. But so understand yourself through the yoga, through your body, be prepared, and then play music. Because it's like, it's bass for me, it's like also an arch. The arch when you stress, and then there is the thing that you go inside. So the strings for me, it's like the strings of an arch, and then the notes is something that you do it like that, and the notes, it's kind of a little point that go into the circle, and so that you let the music go in front of you to the audience. So I just want to show you, like before you play, you do the yoga, the stretching, everything, they feel the body that is good for you, okay? And you be prepared, and then you take the bass. Usually we waking up and take the bass, or we sit down and take the bass, So before you get the exercise, and then it's also important how you get the bass. Now it's not too much like that, not too much like that. So you are here, and then you go on the bass. And at the same way, like I learned the slap, because before the question was about the technique of the brush and the slap. So the thing that support me, not also the sport that I play for almost all my life, but also the yoga, it's like breathing out and to exhale the toxic air and then inhale the oxygen. So it's the same to the technique of the slap that I play. It's like I do a circle, and then when I let the note out, it's like breathing out and then take the oxygen. And this is not like a strength for me. It's like the weight of my body, the gravity, and the breathing, and also helps to the sound, the groove, and it's also personal because it's my weight. It's my tempo. It's my thing. And I'm not stressed because I let the energy out. And this is incredible. This came from the yoga, the Alexander technique, but it came also, I mean, it's a body thing, and it's very important to do it. So yeah, during the slap and the brush thing, I do the same. I strap the string, and in the same time, I want to share it to you. In the same time, so I do this kind of thing, and then so it's a little bit hard. You have to put the arm in this kind of angle and do the 2 movements. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of hard, but I use these brushes that are very thin, and I keep it with the index, and then the medium do the slap. So I build it with a skin of a snare, and in the back there is like a wood piece, like a paint, the square of a paint. I don't know the name in English. I'm sorry. So that's it.
Like a canvas.
Yes.
Wonderful, Francesca. I love you being the bass player, and you know the instrument is in your space, and it's you and the bass, and it comes out as one.
Yeah, because sometimes we study a lot, and we starting to play, and the thing, and the music doesn't work, and maybe sometimes it's not because you didn't study a lot or you don't know the song. It's just because your body is not prepared that day. Your emotion are inside of your body, the negative emotion, and maybe you put on the bass, you put on the music.
Never.
But nobody wants, you know, because sometimes I'm stressed, so I want to play. Instead, it's better that you take off the negative energy and then play, because music is always remain, always. Everyone, somebody can listen. So you have to give positive music, get great music, right?
That's a great segue for me to talk about what I actually do in the intention part. I always, and I talk to this, I talk to all my students about this, is opening your heart before performances, perhaps before you go into a rehearsal, trying to let go of this sort of crap that you have in your brain. So you actually have heart opening exercises. So I'll open up my heart like this, right? And you do it in the front, you're just opening up. I like to work like this. You're always just thinking about, this special place, because sharing, like what Georgia was saying about, connecting with different kinds of people, like people connect through love. And if your heart chakra is open, I don't care if you're a hippie or not a hippie, you could be a straight ahead, totally pragmatic kind of person. And that when you're speaking from an honest place, people hear you. And so that's what we're doing with our music, right? Opening. I also like to open up my back shoulder blades with this exercise. Do a lot of that. But this one is one of the biggest ones for me, and I'll go down into standing forward, talking about the tree, Francesca, right? Finding your center and your roots. So those are just a couple of things that I spend probably like 10 minutes or so doing those. on a musical day. But I think that's a really neat place to wrap up the things that we've talked about. I think now's a good time to perhaps address some questions because maybe some people have them. I know we have a Q&A here. Let's check it out. Erin says, I'd like to know what inspires you in your practice. I struggle to find things to practice by myself as my role on the instrument is so relevant to the ensemble. Georgia, do you want to take that?
Yeah, no, I would like to pass it off to one of the panelists, I think. If that's okay. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Anybody? Yeah, Jen.
Yeah, for the first couple weeks of everything being shut down, which was months ago now, I was experiencing similar things. Like it had been years since I'd really practiced anything that I wasn't directly preparing to perform in the immediate future. So that really took some change of mindset. And for me, before everything shut down, I was playing at the very least 4 hours a day. And personally, I just can't practice for 4 hours every day. I can't keep playing that much every day. So in order to try and keep my chops in shape, despite spending less time on the bass, I've been trying to work on things that are gonna keep my strength and calluses kind of up to speed. So I've come up with exercises that don't use open strings and like using my bow more when I'm practicing to keep my strength up. And then I also I've been listening to a lot of music and just trying to take some mental notes of like, oh, that sounds like a challenging thing to play on the bass. Maybe I'll try that. And actually, am I able to share things? No, that's okay. Something that I've spent some time on that I've been enthusiastic to share with some other bass players, but I haven't yet. Does anybody know that the Duke Ellington piece from the New Orleans suite called "Portrait of Wellman Bro"? I'll put a link to that in the comments, because man, that has everything. It's got double stops. It has no open strings ever. It goes through the entire full range of the bass. It's a serious workout in endurance. So that's something that has been fun to practice.
Yes.
Now I'm a co-host, so I can share. Sure. Well,
Oh, good. Yeah, we got it.
I'll just play a little bit of it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The double stops there. Pick out the line with the chorus. And it's 4 minutes long, but you know, at some point I was listening to that and I'm like, man, that it ticks all the boxes. It's so many great things to work on, and during normal times I wouldn't have time to work on something like that. So I've been trying to keep my ears open for things like that that sound inspiring, that I'd like to be able to do, that now's the time to work on them.
That's so cool, Jen. Jacqueline has a question. If you had 3 wishes that you could see coming true, what would they be?
Let's throw it at Katie.
Well, the first wish would be that the pandemic's over, that we have a vaccine. That would probably be the first wish. I don't know. This is hard. 3 wishes. Wow. You know, I wish everyone could experience playing music like we do, to have that love for it and to get joy out of it, and understand you don't have to be a professional musician to love music and play music and get things from it. I think a lot of people think, well, I have no musical ability, you know, I can't carry a tune, this or that or the other, but that, you know, that's baloney. You know, everybody can participate and enjoy it in some way. So I really would wish that people would understand that and try. You know, I think people get discouraged about playing music at a very early age, and they never reach out to it or go to it, and it's a shame. You know, they need to have as much fun as we're having, you know, at whatever level they're at. So that's 2 wishes. Let's see, third, I don't know.
Does anyone else have a third wish?
Yes, wishes.
A great double bass for free. And an old double bass for free.
I definitely wish to play music with my friends again.
I wish that when we all are injected with the vaccine for COVID, that it has a little extra capsule full of empathy that goes in, and we're all ingested with empathy, the whole world. And that would change everything.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Missy. Yep. So, next question. This is from Joshua. Hey, Josh. How have you been staying motivated to play music during the pandemic? So, I will say that I've been staying motivated just through teaching. I teach every day. I teach anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 Zoom lessons, 6 days a week. Really, like 4 Zoom lessons are like my maximum, because my brain starts to like fry after that. But being there for my students who need me as much as I need them right now. Think about that. Like sometimes I get on with a student of mine who's, you know, she's maybe, you know, playing a little bit of orchestra here, you know, doing some simple solos here and there. But we spend the first 10 minutes and all she wants to do is tell me about, you know, what's been going on. And isn't it neat that this is, you know, and mom did this and that. And what she's doing is actually having like a connection, a communication with me. And then we get into our music. So that's been inspiring and motivating for me to stay in contact with people, with my students. Practice, I've been going in and out of being motivated for practice, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Struggle.
Sorry, Georgia, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I kind of want to hear from everyone on this topic, just because, I mean, personally, I have not been staying motivated during the pandemic. And I had my own question that I wanted to ask later on, just about like avoiding burnout in general. I know in Texas, like for me, for what I'm doing, I feel like it's wedding season, and then it's touring season, and then it's wedding season, and then you're just dropped off the edge of a cliff for the holidays. And it can be really hard to make time for that creative spark, to like keep the balance going so that you're still having fun and enjoying it and being creative, and also making enough money to get by and being professional and doing, you know, whatever you need to do for your band, I guess. But having like been in that cycle for a while, the pandemic has kind of just given me the space to recover, I feel like. And so I've been spending the last 3 months in my garden and not really practicing. And then having, you know, and the more time goes by, definitely having a hard time like figuring out how to circle back. But yeah, I would love to hear from everybody about this question.
Yeah, this has been the strangest year of my certainly in my musical career. It's not been the hardest, you know, emotional year I've ever experienced, but it's been one of the hardest. And everything stopped for me. Like I have no work until sometime in 2021, I assume. Except for my online school at ArtistWorks, of course, that continues. And the IBMA is going to have an online convention this fall, which I'll be part of. But other than that, like I'm not taking any other work, and there is no other work. All of my work got canceled. When it first happened, I didn't imagine we were going to be this long, and it was pretty crazy. It came in the spring. I just kind of shut down and was really freaked out. I was worried about my band, like, because I wanted them to be able to survive this, and I didn't know how I was going to survive it and how we were going to come back. So I retreated to my garden as well, and I just went and dug, put my hands in the dirt for a long time, every day, and didn't play at first at all. But that was the only way that I felt like I could get through it. It was just such a precarious time emotionally. And I'm quarantined here with my husband and my cats, and thank God for that. And I have a little bit of, just a tiny little yard that I can get out to, and I was so grateful for that. But after time, I found that process of just walking away from music for a little while, I started wanting to listen to it again. And as I started listening to it as I was gardening, I found all this creative energy coming back. And I do feel like now I'm starting to feel this creative energy that I haven't felt in a long time, because normally I never have this kind of energy. I prayed for a time to just write and be and just practice for years. I didn't want it to come this way. I mean, for the love of God, this is not how I wanted it, but this is what I've been like praying for years. But when we got here, and the way we got here, it was so freaking scary that I found that shut down all my creative juices. So I felt like that it was important for me to find a way to work through that. And I think that for everyone if you're out there and you're like in the same boat and trying to figure it out, don't beat yourself up on not being, if you haven't like written your novel or written some great album during this time, because we all have to deal with this in our own way, and you have to go through that emotion. And sometimes it's kind of like, that game where you everybody musical chairs, and where the music stops, that's where you sit. Like when the music stopped, we all had to deal with wherever we were at that moment, like emotionally, musically. And for some of us, we were in the middle of a release of an album, a great big tour. Some of us were emotionally not in a great place. So that's where we got left. And then the world sort of started to become unraveling. So anyway, just don't beat yourself up. Deal with it the best way you can. But I I'm writing a new album, and I'm feeling that, and I'm grateful that I can do that. But I sure wouldn't have been able to do it in April. I was really thinking that April was never going to end, and that I was going to be in this crazy April loop, and we were all just going to just die in April. I don't know. It was just horrible. But I'm, slowly coming out of that.
Are you saying April's over?
I pray to God it is.
Does anyone else feel like answering that question?
I want to just answering a little short. I was lucky because I didn't have a home. I didn't have anything. I was in the middle of moving in another house, but I was with Paolo, so we played and we recording an album, and we have a lot of concert online. And in these months, also I have in March I had to do the degree and the new house, but it was everything was so rushed that this pandemic helped me to do the degree. And also because I'm Buddhist, I'm always being able to be prepared about changing, life and death every day. So I practice the mantra and Namyo Renge Kyo every day, and my sensei teacher inspires me a lot to keep positive hope every day. And so I thought maybe about having a musical teacher during this pandemic. And so I started to write email to a lot of great double bass player of the world that I want to put into my degree. And so they inspired me a lot because we are in the same situation. I'm not famous as they are, but they are so great, and we have the same level of fears and hope that they inspire me. And so I'm starting to practice their thing, their music, that I didn't have time to practice before, and I didn't have time to talk with them because they are always in tour or recording something, but they were at home like me. So we were at the same level for the first time, and we talked, and it was so inspiring that I play more than in the past because I was always outside like them. So it was great for me. I'm sorry, but keep
great.
positive.
That's awesome. We're going to do one more question here, and this is for the Western Swing folks. Can you guys talk a little bit about the overlap between Western Swing and traditional jazz and the major differences and similarities? This is from Wendy.
I read this question and I wanted to, Katie, do you feel like you have an answer to this? Because from listening to you earlier, I felt like you had a pretty solid grip on this.
I feel like we're from the same family tree. When jazz started becoming popular in the 20s, basically I feel like Western swing players were people that listened to it and said, we like this, but we're going to do it our way. It seems like in the early recordings there is a lot of crossover. You hear horn players on Western swing records that were well-known jazz artists, and then you have jazz artists using Western swing guitarists on their records. So the family tree is very close here.
Very true.
Yeah, I think my only addendum to that would just be that exactly that, like Western swing is basically like jazz, early jazz with country instrumentation. So instead of horns, fiddles and things like that. But definitely has modernized over time, I guess, like any genre. But yeah, traditionally Western swing and jazz bass would be the same, but then over time into the 40s and 50s, that style became more of a slap style, and then that led right into rock and roll.
Woo! Oh my goodness. So Joshua also asked the question, what are we doing non-musically during this pandemic? And I started gardening, which I've never done in my entire life. So there you go. I've also took up the rug in my house. I'm putting down a new floor, which is taking a long time.
Anyone baking bread? I've done a lot of bread.
Not yet.
I finally threw away our dead sourdough starter.
How long have you had it?
We got it in March, and we made quite a bit of bread there for a while, and then it died. We killed it.
Yeah. I got a puppy.
Nice.
Yeah, she's big girl named Coco after
Nice.
the Dolly Parker tune and my favorite perfume.
Awesome.
This is still musical, but I'm learning to play. I'm spending more time playing clawhammer banjo, but it's not my thing. But I love it, and I have time to do it. So and I'm trying to learn to be able to play guitar on all the songs that I've written. You'd think I'd be able to play guitar well enough on them, but I don't. Sorry.
For me, I've been spending a lot of time with my family. That's definitely been a silver lining for me. Being like this place where I am is hard to get to. So in my typical life that I built, it was hard for me to get here and expensive for me to get here, which makes it extra hard as a working musician. And then I don't think we mentioned this earlier, but I moved to New York in November, so that it was going to be even harder to get back here because it's the other side of the continent. But since I've been here, like in the past 6 months, including just before the pandemic hit, I've been out here for my brother's wedding and my mom's birthday, my dad's birthday, my sister-in-law's birthday,
Wow.
my brother's birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day. And aside from those celebrations that, I haven't been here for everybody's birthday in like more than half of my life. And we're getting together at least once a week with everybody to just, have dinner or have beers. And that's really special for me because I may never get that much family time ever again. We'll see. Who knows? But that's been great. And we've been doing a lot of jigsaw puzzles too.
Incredible. Well, I love all this. I really love the diversity that we've had here. I've enjoyed co-hosting with you, Georgia, Francesca, Katie, Missy, Jen. You guys are just incredible and have really inspired me. The Austin Bass Hang does take donations, and I'd like to mention that if anybody here on any of the attendees, you're feeling perhaps like you'd like to add to future bass hangs, future webinars, future things, please go ahead and take the time to look at this PayPal link under austinbasshang@gmail.com. And we have a little ditty for you guys, just a little something or other that we've thrown together really quick. Want to thank Lauren and Ryan Gould for their technical experience, also for the invitations, and everybody that has asked questions and been a part of this wonderful.
I'm Jessica. I'm sorry. I received your email. I was excited. I didn't practice this song. I'm so sorry, girls.
Oh yes, and perhaps
practice.
You don't need to practice.
I didn't know that.
You just pick up. You pick up. We didn't even practice, girl. We just talked about it.
Okay.
And this is just a little something. It's a little quick little ditty.
You can definitely sing, Francesca.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we're in the key of D.
Okay.
So we're gonna go a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. It's difficult to get everything synced up on Zoom, but we wanted to do a little stinger for y'all. And thanks again. Thanks,
Yeah,
for everybody.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Awesome saying.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Missy, everybody.
Yeah,
Georgia.
it's so great to meet you all.
It really was.
What a treat.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. Let's
Yeah.
do more.
Thank
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much I wanted to talk about.
Let's
Let's do it again next week.
do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Great.
Do
Thank
it
you
again.
so much.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
y'all.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Coming, everybody. Kevin Smith. Woo! Kevin was on. How awesome. Yay. Valls was here. Oh my God, I miss you.